Yo guys, Coach Theo here on Common Sense. Today I'm excited to bring you a full presentation of Uncommon Sense Bodybuilding, aesthetics, strength, flexibility, fun and difficult, to summarize what this training approach and style is all about. So what I practice and teach on this channel and coach my clients in is something I call holistic bodybuilding, body, mind and soul. And so of course what I do and what I talk about on this channel and what I teach others to do, coach my clients in, it's about more than just the physical, about more than just the body. It's just that this style of training, this uncommon sense bodybuilding style, is a huge central part of the entire process. So in today's presentation, we're going to be focusing more on the actual training part, but of course, because it is a holistic practice, we're going to mention little tidbits and details around the whole thing. But yes, let's get into it. So why do this presentation? Well, I want to give out as much free information as possible. You know, ever since I changed my life 5 years ago, going from that skinny fat, loser, nihilist, anxious, depressed, drug abusing, womanizing, porn watching, etc. kind of guy, hitting rock bottom with those daily panic attacks and overcoming it and changing my life. I've been so grateful that ever since all I've been wanting is to give back to others, help others do a similar change that I did. And of course, today I also work with it. So I have clients that actually pay to work more directly with me and all of that. But I'll always want to give out as much free information as possible, hoping that you can use these ideas and implement them for yourself as much as possible. But of course, this is also an opportunity for me to present my style for potential clients, but just as a starting point for more content, see you guys' reactions, your responses, what you think about it all. So before we get into the rest of the presentation, I want to ask you to already now like and comment for the sake of the algorithm and supporting the channel, helping more people find their way here. I truly appreciate it. I'd also want to ask for your support. You can become a member of the channel, support me and the content that way. There are other options. You can see it all in the description. It's all very much appreciated. But let's go on with the presentation. So, the training goals of Uncommon Sense Bodybuilding. It's aesthetics. We want a body that looks good because it is good. All right? I always say that all physically attractive traits are a direct expression of good health or an imitation thereof, meaning that a body that is healthy will look good. Wouldn't necessarily have to be the biggest muscular physique always, but it will be aesthetically appealing, because that's just how nature works, Like some things look good to us because they are good. Health looks good, while an unhealthy body, someone with pale skin and skinny and fat and poor hair, poor skin, all this, we can see that it's not healthy. But it's not necessarily that everything that looks good is good, because it can be an imitation, women using like just a whole layer of makeup, or just dressing up all nice and putting these products in your hair and stuff, so you get away, you cover up kind of if you're not in good shape, And you can also actually train and blow up your muscles so they look kind of good. And there will still be some health benefits to putting on some muscle mass and getting stronger, but doing it in a way where aesthetics is all you think about. Well, first of all, that kind of person might go on steroids, which obviously is not healthy for you. I don't judge, by the way, but in my style, I don't do it and I won't. But yeah, you might, if you, for instance, just develop your body using machines only. Machines can have their place in that, but you might blow up your muscles, but you're not really that stable. Your joints are weak and you don't have good balance and that. So in Uncommon Sense Bodybuilding, we approach aesthetics. We don't shy away from the fact that we like looking good and developing our physique, kind of like working on a sculpture, treating our body as a work of art. But there are certain other boxes we want to check. It's not aesthetics no matter what. It's aesthetics when certain other conditions are fulfilled. So strength, the most important ability in life. We want to get stronger, obviously. Being strong Unless, again, you do it from some kind of, you're just a power lifter, you want to get super strong on these 3 lifts, the deadlift, squat, bench. That's up to you, but then you might get stiff, and it can be a hindrance in some areas of life. But overall, if you develop strength overall in a good way, it only ever helps. Any sport you do will only help being stronger. Oh yeah, of course, certainly, like if you're a marathon runner, a huge amount of muscle mass won't help you, but even a marathon runner would benefit from strengthening their legs and joints to, bulletproof themselves and have a little bit more force in their step and that. Flexibility. We want a body that moves good and feels good. Again, coming back to not aesthetics and strength to any price, we at the same time don't want to get stiff. We want to feel like we can move well, we have good flexibility, mobility, and we feel good. We don't have all these aches and pain in our body. And the last thing is just fun and difficult. I put them together because that's a mindset I want you to develop when you do this kind of, it's not just I have to go to the gym, I have to lift to look good or for my health. I don't really like it. No, of course, it's not always going to be all fun in games, and it's tough to train and push yourself harder and that. But we want to be having a good time challenging and working on ourselves. Because it is fun hitting a personal best, whether that's a 1 rep max or, a max rep with a certain weight or anything like that. It is fun to challenge yourself and feel like, yeah, I got it. So these are the main training goals of Uncommon Sense Bodybuilding. The other goals of Uncommon Sense Bodybuilding, I put here at the top, Uncommon Sense Bodybuilding, aka Holistic Bodybuilding. So I did a presentation on the Uncommon Sense fitness and philosophy when I talked more about everything else. But of course, we're using working on the body as a tool for overall self-development. And the work on the body is a central tool in the overall work on the self. So because in the gym, it's kind of straightforward, like we do exercises, we push ourselves harder, we add more weight to the bar or do more reps. We afterwards, we have to, water the seed. We just break muscle down in the gym. Then we want to water the seed with good recovery, sleep, eating well, all of this. And then gradually improving. But progress is not always linear either. Sometimes you might have to take a step back in one area to make room for progress in another, and so on. And so it's just that it's more straightforward and concrete what we do in the gym. But so we use that. We use analogies from the gym and realize that the way we develop ourselves, make progress, and become stronger and better in the gym, it's very much the same process that we do with anything else we want to get better and improve at. So a stronger body is a stronger mind. Again, it's not just about the body. And working on the body, it's impossible. Someone tried to in a video I recently made about why you need to be more jacked than average. He really tried to make a case. He tried to come up with any excuse not to have to work on the body, and it's fine. Not everyone has to do this style of training. It's up to them. But it's, again, just as in, it will never be a hindrance to you to be stronger in your body, but also this guy, again, just a random example, other people do it too, but having a strong mind, that's what's important in 2023. The thing is, a strong body means a strong mind. When you're pushing heavy squats, your mind is going to tell you, I don't want to, can we please stop? Or we can, it's okay if we take it a bit chill more today and that. But pushing through it, you're going to develop a stronger mind. Like, it's incredible actually, like how difficult of a time people have pushing themselves like that. But you just as you can get used to cold showers and anything like that, you can get used to I'm just shutting down that voice that wants to quit. You get a strong mind from strengthening the body. And so other practices go well. I went more into all of this in my other video, Uncommon Sense Fitness and Philosophy, but just practices that go well with this training approach and philosophy is fasting, meditation, introspection, cold exposure, anything that makes you stronger spiritually, mentally, or physically. Again, we're using the gym. It's a central tool working on the body here, but it makes what that process looks like, how we become stronger there. It really reveals, and the other things we gain apart from a better looking and feeling and stronger body and that. Yeah, we in the same way, we see that any way we challenge ourselves, face some fears or discomfort or just taking on something new, that will help us in other ways as well. So really, it's just about becoming a better you, pushing yourself, challenging yourself, both in the physical department and in the mental and spiritual. So this style of training is a sort of power building training with long range of motion. So we're working on strength and hypertrophy at the same time. You know, some people with just their training practice, how they do it, or if they train for some sport, they will split into strength blocks and hypertrophy blocks. And I should say that it's not black and white either, because we know getting stronger, being able to move more weight, it gives you more potential to build muscle because you can now do higher rep sets with higher weight, but also putting on muscle gives you higher potential for becoming stronger. So it's a spectrum kind of. You know, they go more hand to hand, strength and hypertrophy. The newer to the gym you are, the more advanced you get, the more you can focus on one of them, choose to do that. But it's also a spectrum. It's not like this is just strength training, this is just hypertrophy training. No, we can do both of them at the same time. So this is the thing. Of course, you can sometimes have, like, I have the one lift I'm working more on strength on, but then most things I do more general hypertrophy strength, right? But so mostly I put this here that, you know, below 5 reps per set, it can be implemented for certain strength goals, but more often than not, we want to have above 5 reps per set, even on compounds, for that hypertrophic stimulus. So it's not that you couldn't build any muscle at all with lower reps than 5, but generally it's a little too little mechanical tension with doing lower than 5 reps. So keeping it in the like 5 to 10 rep range is a good sweet spot to both get stronger, but not, you might be able to get stronger, increase your 1 rep max faster if you focus more on lower reps, but you will get stronger in that rep range as well, but you will also build muscle at the same time. But what we want to combine this power building style with, working on strength and muscle building at the same time, is long range of motion. So things like doing ass to grass squats instead of stopping at parallel. Deficit Romanian deadlifts, you know, we get a good stretch on the hamstrings. Dead hang chin-ups, you know, not stopping short. We get that stretch at the bottom. Deep dips, same thing here. We're not stopping at parallel. We get a good stretch on the shoulders and chest for hypertrophy and flexibility. So this is something, again, how it's not black and white if you're training for strength or hypertrophy. People would think often that like strength, weight training and mobility training are separated. And absolutely, there can be, again, a reason to focus more on mobility only or strength only or whatever. But they intersect more than you think, because if you pick exercises with a good stretch is obviously good for mobility, but all good natural lifters know that emphasizing the stretch in an exercise is a good stimulus for hypertrophy. Like stretch-mediated hypertrophy is a thing. So by programming as much as possible with exercises with a long range of motion and that have a good stretch, we can actually build muscle, get stronger in this range, and get better flexibility and mobility. And we actually bulletproof ourselves too. Working end ranges like that is a good way to strengthen the joints and that. So yes, strength, hypertrophy and flexibility can be divided, but the core of this training style is to go for some of everything at once as much as possible. And so we're thinking about functionality while also giving room to train muscles just for the sake of muscular development. So this means, again, that we don't want an aesthetic body to any price. Like, we're as much as possible, like doing ass to grass squats, for instance. We're opening up our hips. We're getting good hip mobility. We're getting stronger, obviously. We're putting on more weight over time, and we're building muscle at the same time. So as much as possible, we want to think of this functionality, but since we are aesthetic enjoyers, and we might have weak body parts and stuff like this. Of course, we can do. It's not that every single exercise has to be like this. Of course, there's room to just focus on actually using a machine just to blow up a muscle part on top of the other work. You see, all right. All right. So the Uncommon Sense Physique, it's obviously based on my physique because I'm the Uncommon Sense guy, Theo, that's built pretty good physique. So the key muscles, it's the upper chest, incline presses, with a barbell or dumbbells, in the Smith machine even, or ring push-ups of different kinds are gonna be good for hitting that upper chest. Then the upper back, so the upper traps, rhomboids, mid traps, rear delts-ish there. So horizontal or below, like that angle rows, wide grip rows, deadlifts, and more. The upper back is a typical, it can work, contract. You can do contraction, actual motion, but the upper back is so often going to be just stabilizing or just holding, isometrically holding weight, like in a deadlift, for instance. So this is the thing with developing the upper back. We do that in our programming by having a whole lot of, we don't necessarily always train, for instance, the traps with shrugs or something. We just, in our overall program, going to have direct and indirect volume for the upper back and just blow it up that way. Then 3D delts, the big round shoulders. So obviously different presses for that front delt. Wide grip rows for the rear delts. Upright rows for the mid delt. And by the way, again, an exercise that's going to hit the upper back, the traps. Lateral raises, other isolation, so like reverse flies, and maybe we do some front raises or something. And then the abs, direct and indirect work. So we're going to come to more exercises specifically. But again, we can train our abs directly, but it's also in our overall programming, we're going to make sure that we hit the core indirectly like that. And so this is the yoked Uncommon Sense fit. You have this, there are some new additions that we're gonna go through in like weak body parts and that, like training in the neck and stuff. But really, this kind of, how do you say that in English? Like krage, like this collar, almost from the upper chest and delts and upper back, like this blowing up this entire upper shelf area and having good abs at all times. Of course, we want to develop everything else, but this is something to emphasize to get this almost kind of wrestler look. People have asked me many times if I'm a wrestler. I'm not yet. So staple exercises we have are quad dominant squats for the quads, obviously. So front squats, heel elevated squats, that could be with a bar on the back. Safety squat bar squats. It can be the safety squat bar squats if you have the cambers, the side things pointing forwards. It's kind of like a front squat. There's nothing wrong with a back squat, but just what we would here, because we're training for hypertrophy and strength, we would opt for more of a high bar squat than a low bar squat. We like to get stronger, but using specific exercises and forms. So posterior chain dominant hip hinges, so stiff-legged deadlifts or Romanian deadlifts. We can absolutely do standard deadlifts, nothing wrong with that, but now we're talking about the staples, of course. Weighted chin-ups or pull-ups, amazing builder for, both the biceps, but the lats and some of the mid back there as well. Seal row or other wide grip flare elbow rows. It's again to target more, if our pull-ups or chin-ups target more lats, something like a seal row or an other wide grip row will target more of the mid and upper back and rear delts. Incline bench press for that upper chest, and the upright row for the incline bench, for instance, and the seal row is going to hit front and rear delt a lot, the upright row for that mid delt. Yes, and so we're going to go through some, of course, I'm going through there. It's always individual, and there is just a ton of exercises, and just variation is a sort of a way to, stimulate new growth and development. But now I'm just walking through some of my favorite exercises in general. It's both individual, and of course there's just a ton of exercises to do. But other leg exercises I really like is the Bulgarian split squat for quads and glutes, of course. Jefferson curls. So Jefferson curls is a typical one that could be used as a mobility exercise, but you can go heavy on it and develop your posterior chain. Nordic curls, it's sort of a body weight leg curl. Reverse Nordics, so that's obviously the opposite. You and the leg extensions, that kind of body weight. You can use a band or do body weight. You have to be quite strong to not use any assistance at all. Same with a Nordic curl, really. And leg curls and leg extensions, those machines. But again, these we just like because we can blow up our legs with some isolated volume, but it's on top of the more athletic stuff. Other push exercises. So of course we can have a flat bench. I just put out a video about the 7 lifts that built my physique. I talked about why I prefer the incline bench over the flat bench. We can, like the flat bench, it's a great strength builder. Of course, it's going to build your chest if you get stronger at it. I just think that many times if our main goal is not to just get a huge bench press number, there are better options. Close grip bench is a great alternative as well. Just put a little bit more focus on the triceps. Shoulder press, seated or standing. So that you can of course do that with both dumbbells and a barbell. Behind the neck press. We're gonna come to working weaker positions, but behind the neck press is gonna hit the mid delt a bit more. Dumbbell presses, absolutely we like them. Flat, incline, or seated for a shoulder press again. Always deep range of motion. This is again, it plays into the whole training style. If we get a good stretch, we're gonna improve our chest, shoulder mobility, but we're also stimulating a lot of hypertrophy that way. We might just have to take, go one step lower on the dumbbells. Ring push-ups, different angles, always deep range of motion. Same thing as with the dumbbells, really. Quite similar benefits from the exercises. The ring push-ups are just gonna challenge the core more indirectly, and more shoulders often because you have to stabilize more with the rings. Lateral raises, cable lateral raises, good isolations for the shoulder. Overhead extensions with bar, dumbbells, or cables. So again, to get a good stretch, it is important to hit specifically the long head, the biggest head of the triceps. But again, we get some actual shoulder mobility or arm mobility as well by emphasizing that stretch. But then to target more of the other heads of the triceps, we also do some push downs with rope or a straight bar. Something like a JM press when we're not going for that stretch necessarily, but we're more working here, working in front of us, pressing the bar. Other pull exercises. So cheat or explosive rows, meaning we could do something like a barbell row, but that we use more weight than we can row strictly and use our legs to explode. Use the momentum to overload the back and then control the eccentric. We like lat pull downs, different grips, so we can have both wide to spread out the stimulus a bit more. We can have a close grip to hit more lats and biceps. Something like behind the neck pull downs is we're gonna come to working weak positions, but that's also gonna be a great mid back and rear delt builder. Unilateral diagonal pull downs. So it wouldn't have to be unilateral. It's often just the best setup, but the lats, we often work them from like when we have like in a pull up or pull down, we're straight above our head or we're right in front of us. But to get the best stretch on the lat, we actually want sort of a diagonal angle. So it's a great, something like a unilateral diagonal cable pull down, gonna be a great kind of secondary exercise. Pullovers and straight arm pull downs. So these would be more isolated lat exercises. You push a bar down from a cable, or you have a dumbbell or a C-bar I've used lying down, pulling with. So it's straight arm, quote unquote. It's just that we're not actively trying to change the angle of our arm so much. We're pretty much at a constant position. Cable reverse flies or the reverse pec deck. More isolated rear delt work, and pelican curls, incline curls, preacher curls for biceps. Again, there are just tons of different curls you could do that are great, but we like something like a pelican curl and incline curl because the biceps, it's often worked in kind of a shortened position in front of us. With pelican curls and incline curls, we actually get that good stretch. Again, good for both hypertrophy and flexibility. Oops. Jumping ahead, working weak positions. We have weak body parts first. So abs, it's not necessarily weak body parts, but I put it together with this because it's one that it's kind of like in your overall programming. Where do you want to put it? But yeah, we with the programming, if we do something like front squats, we have our ring push-ups, we have different exercises that challenge our core indirectly. That's good, but for complete ab development, get bigger, chunkier abs like that look even more defined when you're lean, or that actually stick around and look good longer when you're bulking and putting on a little bit of fat. We want to train the abs as any other muscle, progressively overloading. So I have an ab video you can watch more specifically for the abs. When we want something like a top-down movement, like some sort of crunch, some sort of bottom-up, like a leg raise, or attaching your feet to a cable and pulling towards you like that, and a side, so something like a side raise, holding a weight in the hyperextension or standing. And so calves, to get a full development of the calves, we want one exercise with a straight leg to work more of the gastrocnemius. So that's the kind of fun looking calf, that little bulge right below your knee. But there is one called the soleus beneath too, and we work that more with a bent knee. So something like doing calf raises in a Smith machine with straight legs. And you could, of course, bend the knee and sit, have the bar on your knees and do some kind of calf raise there. But otherwise, there's often a seated calf machine in gyms. Tibialis. So the tibialis is the front muscle on the lower leg, so opposing the calf. Almost no one works this, but it's great for injury prevention. And if you want full aesthetic development of the lower leg, we should develop the tibialis as well. So as you can imagine, if the calves push the toes down, the tibialis does the opposite. You can do this either by attaching your toes to some kind of these attachments that you can put on a cable. You can lift your toes up like that, get a good stretch on them like that. There is a good body weight exercise too, when you just lean towards the wall. And just the further out you put your feet, the more difficult it is, but then you just lift like that. The neck, just kind of similar like with the abs, but more than it's one top down and bottom up. It's like we want to have one exercise for the front, one from the back and from the sides. So for the front, we could have a plate just on our forehead, lie on a bench, go like that. On the back, we could put a plate on our just on the back of our head as well, but it's good to have a neck harness, especially for the back. The sides, you can use a neck harness to have a weight hanging from the side, raise your, laterally raise your neck like that, but you could also lie down, put the weight on your neck and do like that. Forearms, something that a lot of people don't train, often train biceps and triceps, but not forearms. So reverse curls, just switching the grip for a barbell curl or dumbbell. Gonna work more of the forearms. Wrist curls and extensions, so when we just have some support, curl or extend our wrist. And then using fat grips, so these attachments you can put on dumbbells or barbells or different cable attachments, and do either curling motions or pulling motions. It's just because it's you have a, it's something bigger to grip, you're just going to activate more forearm muscles. But so the way we want to program this, and we're going to get to programming overall in a while, but we either want weak point days when we actually just train this little, because calves you can really train on any day, abs you could throw in on any day, etc. So we can either have a complete weak point day when we kind of train all or some of these muscles, or we want to sprinkle them out on other workouts and kind of. I'm not a huge fan of antagonistic supersets, unless you can do that, like something like a push exercise and a pull exercise every other set, but it might steal a little bit. You might just get centrally fatigued, but it's completely unrelated. Like if you do leg extension, as an example here, isolated leg exercise, and go in when you rest, you go do wrist curls. Those are just not going to take anything from each other. So it's just either you have a weak point day choose some of these to work only on that day, or you sprinkle them out where it fits in other places in the program. So working weak positions, yes. So there are no dangerous exercises, just weak positions and stupid people. So there are a lot of things you get told just in the mainstream, like, oh, don't squat with your knees above your toes, it's dangerous. Or don't round your back, it's dangerous. But what it just is a weak position. You're exposed in the position, but just don't be dumb. If it's a weaker position, use lower weight. Start out at a weight you can handle before you add more weight. So if you can get into a position by yourself that nothing forced you in there, it isn't dangerous, all right? And think about it. If you're rounding your back, oh no, don't do that. No, never do that in the gym. Very often in your everyday life, you're going to be rounding your back, and it's actually by not strengthening your back, in this example, in this weak position, that you might actually injure yourself when you're rounding your back, just lifting at something when you're not thinking about it in your everyday life, right? So, yeah, weaker positions, lower weights, but strengthening muscles and joints in weak positions is bulletproofing. That's why, again, don't be stupid. Don't think that you can throw on as much weight in a weakened position. But when you've lowered the weight, now you can get stronger in this position. That's the thing. And when you do that, that's how you actually bulletproof yourself. If you strengthen your knee in the weakest position, not only will you handle that weak position better, when you're not in the weakest position, you're bulletproof. So rounded back exercises like the Jefferson curls, as that I talked about, strengthen the back in a kind of weak position. Knees over toes exercises like heel elevated squats or just ATG split squats, stuff like that. Deep pushing exercises like full range of motion dumbbell presses or ring push-ups or deep dips, behind the neck presses or pulls. Working weak positions to bulletproof body, absolutely. But we might also tap into another dimension of hypertrophy, because as an example, how many people train the lower back in a rounded position? No, mostly it's hyperextensions with just a straight back, or deadlifts trying to keep the back straight, doing seated rows or barbell rows trying to keep them back straight. But you're missing one layer, another dimension, if you're not working the back in this example in a rounded position as well. So last thing I say about all of this, some of these positions for some people that already have a problem, like doing deep dips, it might be too much, even if it's body weight for someone to start with. But then you can start doing something like deep, you elevate, you use some of these parallettes or something to do push-ups first, and you can even do it on your knees or something and work yourself there. It's just like, we want to be working these weak positions to bulletproof ourselves, but to stimulate hypertrophy in another way. We just have to be smart with how we do it and where we start. So exercise tiers and rep ranges. So these are general examples and general rules. It's not that you couldn't do higher reps on the biggest compounds, for instance, and certain isolations might actually work doing lower reps, but general rules of thumb when you're going to program in this style is that for big compounds like squats, deadlifts, weighted chin-ups, heavy rows, barbell presses, want 5 to 10 reps. Again, we could go lower if you have some specific strength goals on some exercise, but when we want this power building style, get stronger and build muscle, we like to keep it above 5, but probably below 10. But again, you could do higher, of course. Tier 2, so multi-joint smaller exercises, so meaning it's not a complete isolation, you're still moving more than one joint, but it's just not as big, as taxing of an exercise as the main compounds. But stuff like split squats, lat pull downs, seated rows, dumbbell presses, and so on. 8 to 15 reps. Of course you could go higher, probably not lower with most of these, but again, it's a general rule of thumb. So tier 3 are the more pure isolations, so like curls, push downs, lateral raises, leg extensions, leg curls, stuff like this. And here, most of the time we wouldn't want to go below 8, and we can actually go as high as 20 here. So programming, there, I put here in the end, or last, second to last point, that gentleman splits, like bro splits tailored to the individual. Like the bro splits, it's funny, like the different levels of awareness with training. Like level 0 or 1 could be bro split. You know, I have arm day, back day, chest day, leg day. And it's kind of dumb because some muscles will inevitably work together. So the next level is to think that, you know, push-pull legs, for instance, is the best. But realizing that it's individual, you know, with weak body parts and that, but how much volume a muscle can tolerate, and all of this, you know, we can realize that a bro split that's well thought through, and it's not just like, oh, chest day, but you know, the muscles you choose to work together, that might actually be the very best split for an individual. So I'm gonna give some examples of what I think are like the main splits that I would program for myself and other people, but there's always room to make it gentleman split. It's from Natural Hypertrophy, the YouTuber, I've taken that. It's like the good bro split, you know. Sun shining in here now, but I'm just tiny in the window up in the corner, so it doesn't matter. Okay, so for the novice up to intermediate person, I like to have a split of one upper workout per week and one lower and one full body. So it's 3 workouts, but with this kind of programming, we're still gonna be able to hit all muscles twice. So we can program. On the upper, we're going to have mostly compounds, push and pull compounds, isolations according to the individual's needs. And on the lower, we're going to do our heavy squats and deadlift hip hinge variations, followed again by some isolations according to the individual's needs. The full body, we're going to get in mainly compounds on that one, but we can always throw in little isolations at the end. Of course, there's room for these kinds of weak body parts to superset, as I mentioned earlier. Then I do like the push-pull leg split, absolutely. It's just a very simple way to divide the body into 3, and you can hit these push-pull legs, 2 of each per week. It's going to be 6 workouts, but it can also be a good, it's a good split for the person that doesn't really train the same muscle group on the same day always, and don't have time for 6 workouts. You can rotate through. And so if it's 4 to 6 workouts, you know, it's a rule of thumb. I forgot to put it here in the programming, but generally, no, it says here, generally want to directly target every muscle twice per week. But it's not that we have to. Certain muscles you could definitely work more, and you're going to be able to make progress working the muscle less too. And of course, if we do in a push-pull legs, if we did 4 workouts, for instance, like over time, on average, we're working the muscle like 1.33 times per week. But I like a push-pull legs a lot for someone that can't always do the same workout on the same day and just kind of cycle through. You know, you do your push, and then the next time you can train, you do your pull. The next time you can train, you do the legs, and just so on. Then we have my split that I'm actually going to do a standalone video on at some point. Please let me know in the comments if you like to see that. But I like the upper-lower split a lot and the push-pull legs a lot. I see different benefits and drawbacks to both. It can be good to train push and pull muscles and exercises in the same session, but it can be good to split them up as well. So when I was thinking, like, how can I get both of these? I realized I can have the upper-lower split make love to the push-pull leg split and have a beautiful child. So we have the foundation of this kind of split, and this really is for the intermediate up to advanced or elite lifter. And the push-pull legs thing could be almost anyone, could be both a novice and quite advanced person. But this, I would recommend for someone that's getting closer to advanced territory, intermediate at least. But we start, so in the week, it would look like Monday, upper, Tuesday, lower, Wednesday, rest. Then Thursday, Friday, Saturday is push-pull legs, and we rest on Sunday. But we also have the option to have these weak point days on the rest days, Wednesday and Sunday. So I have done that. I have to think a little differently now when I started bulking and training harder. I had abs on these days, for instance, and I just my core is too taxed, so I can't have that now. But for instance, I work my neck, I work calves always on Sundays and Wednesdays at least. But yeah, we generally want to target every muscle directly twice per week. That's pretty much what I get here. 10 to 20 sets per muscle per week, but I put, and that means that this is a good range to kind of max out. But it's not that you couldn't, especially as if you're less advanced, could make progress with less. And I also put the but there because sometimes when we think how many sets per muscle group, are we thinking direct work or indirect? Like when we're thinking biceps, for instance, are we only thinking about our curls or are we thinking about some pulling exercises as well? So when I think of it like this, I think mostly direct sets, but certain muscles you're gonna see, like my upper traps, for instance, for me, how I program them, I have no exercise when I'm thinking I'm training upper traps only, because it's that entire upper back area. I don't really do shrugs. I could program them for the right person, it's always individual, but the traps, as I spoke about earlier in the video, it's just muscles that are going to help out and be involved so many times. So something like the traps will benefit a lot from just overall good programming and being hit indirectly. And then you could, let's say that our horizontal rows and wide grip rows, for instance, are exercises we actually count as more direct trap exercises. But then we're going to have our shoulder presses, our hip hinges, deadlift variations where we hit the traps as well. So, 10 to 20 sets is good to think about when you're thinking about exercise and muscle specifically. But you could get away with less for some, and especially if you're newer. And some muscles will like to get more than that, but through indirect work as well. So we talked about the gentleman splits already, but obviously the way you program is you start out whichever split you use. You obviously want to take the heaviest tier 1 compound exercises before moving on, like 1 or 2, depends on the programming of course, before moving on to a few tier 2 exercises, before moving on to some tier 3 more isolated exercises. But this may be changed to emphasize weak points. So an example, something like I'm doing right now, for biceps, not triceps, but doing isolated arm exercises before heavier pushing and pulling work, to work this weak point when you have the most energy left, and also maybe even pre-fatiguing a bicep. So when you go do your heavier pulling work, you're working the biceps more because it's already more tired. It's the bicep that steers the fatigue a bit more. Training to failure. Okay, so this is a big one in this training philosophy. I've always been a huge fan of training to failure, and there's a lot of contradicting information out there in the fitness industry, like, oh no, there are better ways, blah blah blah. It's over intellectualized, all of this. I would say training to failure is a good approach. You might not have to start there if you're a complete beginner, of course, but there are many good reasons to train to failure. So the rule of thumb in uncommon sense bodybuilding is we take every exercise and set to failure. Not all compounds, but 0 reps in reserve is good, and that's something you learn by going to failure. You're gonna, because people underestimate how much they can do when they're not used to it. But the more we take stuff to failure, and of course we might want to have someone spotting us if we're doing on the compounds. We don't necessarily have to go so that we fail a rep and get pinned under a bar on a bench press, for instance. But we like to go so that we know I would fail if I went for another rep. But we're going to talk a bit more about this on the compounds and the progression section. But losing reps between sets is not bad when training to failure. Because it might seem, like I pushed myself on an exercise, I got 11 reps, and I just get 10 the next one, like, but I got 11, then 10 afterwards is not enough. But no, you're accumulating more volume still. So training to failure, it's good that you're on many exercises you're supposed to lose a rep or 2 between sets. Training to failure stimulates muscle growth, but it's also part of the overall training philosophy, increasing resilience and stress, pain tolerance, right? Talked about that, training the mind by training the body. Of course, if you're going to be able to handle more stress because this training is a stress, but also the pain, just pushing through a good kind of pain, like meaning, not pain that's actually an indication of an injury, right? But this will, at any point, you'll just be able to handle stress more and endure pain if you have to, if you're injured somehow. So it's not only, absolutely, the training for failure is about the results and that, but it gives other benefits outside of the gym as well. Failure makes progression auto-regulated. So this is something I like a lot with training. It makes it easy. It's like if you push to failure and you got 9 reps, on your first set on exercise, the next time you come, you push to failure, you get 10 reps. It's very clear. Like, yeah, I gave it my all and got 9 last time, and I gave it my all, I got 10 last time. I made progress. It's very obvious. If you always try to go for the most you can, not only is it a good stimulus to make the progress, but it makes it very visual for you that it's working. So we can also use intensity techniques and this is something I do myself on every exercise where it makes sense. A push beyond the failure on the last set with drop sets or other intensity techniques. So that means drop set could just be if it's a cable machine exercise, you can just lower and continue. A good rule of thumb, how you lower something depends on the exercise, but around 25% is good. You can lower it once more again, push way beyond failure. On certain exercises, it just makes sense to change up the form, like if you're doing a barbell row, for instance. Maybe not the best example, but let's say that. Anyway, say that you start out strict. I ate right before this, I'm sorry. You start out strict, but then you use some momentum to crank out some extra reps on the last set, or you do strict curls, and when you can't strict curl anymore, you use your hips to get up here and control the negative, stuff like that. So progression, auto-regulated and feel-based. So this is, again, it's something connecting this to the holistic bodybuilding, and it's about getting to know yourself, and you're not supposed to have to follow this very, like, oh, on this week I do this exact sets and reps with this weight and I increase it by this many percent. I mean, people who like that can do that, but if we can auto-regulate and feel ourselves, because if we just have a overall thinking, this is something I really want people to understand with progressive overload, that yes, most of the time it is straightforward as adding weight to the bar or adding reps, doing more reps with the same weight. But it's just that we have to be pushing ourselves more over time. And that can come in many different forms. It might be improving our form, that we do a certain amount of reps on a certain amount of weight. If we do better form, less cheaty, more controlled, that's also a sort of progressive overload. So if you just always go into your sessions with this mindset that I want to beat what I've done before somehow. Of course, not literally on every workout. We can't always make progress on every workout, but overall, that's the kind of mindset we want. So on compound, I like to start a building phase just at a certain weight and reps per set that I know I can do. So I'm just leaving room for progression, I'm not thinking necessarily in these terms like reps in reserve or RPE, if you've heard about those. I'm just thinking like, yeah, I want to start out here because I know I can do it, and then I'm going to push myself more. So we're going to increase reps or weight by feel. So if we take a squat, for instance, we do 3 sets of 5 starting at 100 kilos. Next time, maybe we try to go for 105 kilos for 3 sets of 5 again. Or we have the 3 sets of 5 at 100 kilos, and the next time we want 3 sets of 6 at 100 kilos, etc. So I really like this approach that, when we're thinking about how close to failure we have to train to make progress and like doing some sub-maximal work will help us as well. And it's, how do I want to say this? That, yeah, but it makes it straightforward like this. Like, as long, even if you started so low that it literally didn't stimulate any progress at all, you now made room though, so that if you just keep improving, adding weight or reps to your compounds over time, you're going to see progress eventually, right? So we're making room for progress. So for compounds, I like to progress in this way that whatever we chose, to increase reps or weight. And of course, we can do something like increase reps to a certain point and then add weight and lower the reps and do the same thing. But we progress the compound until we feel we hit the wall. Like, nah, I don't seem to be able to just add weight or reps at this point. Then we can step down in weight, kind of again leave us a room to work up and see if we can beat the old max when we've worked ourselves back, or we just choose a different variation now. So say that I tapped out, I maxed out on a back squat. Now I go to a front squat and I start somewhere where I know I can progress. I do that until I hit the wall. I could switch back to the back squat again. And many times just cycling variations like this is also going to help. So then when I get back to my back squat, I'm going to be able to reach a new higher level. But it can also be something like something I did last year when I was bulking, for instance, is I pushed my incline bench I was doing a 5x5 thing then, 5 sets of 5, until I reached a weight where I couldn't anymore. And I was doing touch and go reps. So now I just started over doing paused reps. And then I worked myself back to the same numbers, but I was doing paused reps now. And then I know that I've improved because the paused rep is a more challenging variation, right? So this is how we think about compounds, just auto-regulated field-based like this, giving ourselves room to progressing in the ways I've described until we can't, and then stepping back or choosing a different variation to do the same with. But every other exercise, because most other exercises you could just take to failure, and say that we then have a rep range like 8 to 12. We might say that I start out doing a dumbbell press here, and I have a weight that I can maybe get 9 reps the first set, and then I get 2 sets of 8. Then I come the next time, I might get 10, and then 9, and then 8. And then I would get 11, 10, 10 or something. But when I'm close to the roof here, I might get 12 or even more than 12 on the first set. Then I can now move on to the next set of dumbbells and start over within at the lower end of the range, right? And this is when I think again that failure auto-regulates progress so much. If you just know that, I have my 3 sets, I'm hitting these numbers, I'm pushing them up within this rep range. Now I'm at the top of the rep range, great. Go to the next step of dumbbells, repeat. And so training to failure as much as possible gives less guessing work. Yeah, because when people do this, that they think they leave a certain amount of reps in reserve, RPE, and that. I'm not saying that approach isn't viable at all. It's just that for a lot of people, they're gonna underestimate. They're gonna train less hard than they think they do, and training to failure is just always, if you did as much as you could, there's no guessing work. You know what you could do, and if you do better the next time, you know that you pushed, that you've improved. No, not just that whatever, you felt better and managed to get another rep. So, yeah, I think the RPE and reps in reserve thing, to be honest, it's more for advanced individuals. And it is when you start to get really, really, really strong on exercises, but that's mostly compounds. But that's when funnily enough, you actually might have to train less hard because you're just going to tax your joints and stuff so much when you can move so much weight. Okay, bulking and cutting we're fans of in this training style, because a calorie surplus is just the best driver of muscle growth when all else is in place. The training practice, the recovery, the nutrition, the sleep. The best boost you can give to your training is to eat in a calorie surplus. It's like when people think about supplements and steroids and that. I mean, of course, someone on steroids needs to eat right still, but like, as a supplement, a calorie surplus is like the best natural supplement there is. And cutting, we do obviously for aesthetics when we want to shed, because when we bulk, we're going to put on some fat with our muscle. So we cut down for the aesthetics, but also to just leave room for another bulk again. and to reap other benefits of fasting if doing it with fasting. So fasting is of course something I'm a fan of. I'm going to talk more about fasting towards the end of this presentation. But we do cycles of cutting down to around 10% body fat, bulk up to max 20% body fat. And if you're over 20% body fat, bulking is not necessary really if you're not an advanced lifter. And if you are like a strength athlete and something and you don't really care about being lean. But if you're over 20% body fat and not super advanced and all that, you should just eat your maintenance with high protein and crush your workouts. You're gonna recomp, you're gonna burn some fat as you put on muscle. Then when it stalls, you can decide if you wanna cut down, get lean, and start a bulk from there, or bulk towards 20% body fat and then start cutting. And so cycles of cutting and bulking builds discipline and self-control, apart from, according to me, just being the most effective, rather than trying to like main gain, as they call it, eat in the tiniest surplus ever, make super small progress, and just to not put on fat. It's just superior to not be afraid of putting on a little bit of fat to really boost the gains and then cutting down afterwards and doing that kind of cycle. But it also builds discipline and self-control. You get to know yourself a lot, what your needs and your abilities are when you're working towards certain goals, eating a certain way and that. But it just, if you can on command, like just eat more to push weights, more weight in the gym, and put on weight yourself. And when you decide to just eat less to lose weight, you learn a lot about yourself, but you're gaining great self-control. You can choose to gain weight or lose weight. Most people, of course, have problems losing weight, but for some people, it's not easy to gain weight either. But so bulking at a rate of 1 kilo or 2 pounds per month is a good goal. Maximum 500 calorie surplus. Otherwise, it's just going to be unnecessary fat gain that doesn't really boost the gains anymore. And you're just going to have more fat to lose when you cut. Cutting, though, it can be done way more aggressively, especially when fasting. Because, naturally built muscle, it just doesn't go. If you just don't stop, even if you're fasting, if you don't stop eating well, high protein, and training well when you're not fasting, the muscle is just not going to go away, and you can be quite aggressive with it, or if you do a daily deficit and go kind of low on it. So you don't have to be aggressive with cutting, but just saying it makes more sense and works better to be aggressive with a cut than with a bulk. Because with a bulk, don't be afraid to put on a little bit of fat, but if you go full pig mode, you're just gaining more fat and not really more muscle. Maintenance periods for skill work and working weaknesses. So of course sometimes also we might just want to stay and enjoy our current shape, if we cut down. But it can make sense. I often do this like during the summer. After I cut down, after a winter bulk, I might have a few months when I'm just experimenting, maybe working for some skill that isn't really just about putting on muscle, so I don't really have to be in a surplus like that. And you can work weaknesses. It works better when you're not really bulking to improve weak muscles or body parts. So we can have maintenance periods for this kind of work as well, but generally do cycles of bulking and cutting. So recovery and other health recommendations. Sleep as much as possible. Go to bed before 10. It's just that, the sleep science is very clear. The first couple of... I go to bed earlier myself. I like to go up very early as well. But I talked about that in other videos. Really, when we're just talking about health, recovery, it's just that the two for a couple hours before midnight are pretty much worth the double. So if we can sleep as much as possible and go to sleep at 10, we're just going to get the best recovery and health benefits from that. And I say as much as possible because, of course, life, sometimes we struggle from stress or we have to do shit and that. So can't always. But, of course, it's great if we can get like 7-8 hours on average. If we get a little less sometimes, it happens. But if we can catch up sometimes, sleep more than 8 hours, that's great as well. But really, we're going to talk about diet as well in a bit, but the training is the most important part for making good progress. But it's more like you're planting a seed. and you plant it better or whatever, you plant a better seed, a seed with more potential, the better you train. But then we water and grow this seed into the actual gains by managing recovery well. So sleep and nutrition will be the main things, of course. Sauna, amazing health benefits from the sauna, and it's so easy. I don't know how accessible it is overall in the world, but in Sweden, fortunately, it's a tradition, so most gyms have it. Cardiovascular health, immune system, tons of shit I can't think of and list now, but it's great. But it's good for recovery from training as well. Might actually aid hypertrophy just the slightest. But yeah, just an amazing thing to do and a good time. Just shoot the shit with the fellas in there. Cold exposure. I mean, it's something that if we get nitty gritty, we don't want to do too intense cold exposure right after training because it might actually stunt gains. We want acute inflammation from the training, like right after. But doing it every now and then and on a rest day or even in the morning before training is not going to stunt the growth in that way. There's just a ton of good, stress resilience and immune system and all that shit that we like in our holistic bodybuilding as well. Walking, the most accessible health tool there is. Just walking is good for like almost everything: blood pressure, blood sugar, recovery, because of blood flow in the body, slight cardio effect from this. What was it I was thinking? And yeah, just metabolism, burning more energy, because we like the more energy you burn, the better. Basically, like even when you're not trying to lose weight, you're able to eat more because you burn more. That just means you're a machine running on lots of fuel. There's lots of energy flooding through you. So 10k steps is a good rule of thumb. If you can't get that on every day, that's fine. If you can walk more on some days, as good as well, of course. Depending on if you're really not fit or overweight, you might have to work up to this. Honorable mention that I should have put as a little point here is if you can't get the full length in, it's a good rule of thumb is trying to get 3 10-minute walks in a day. So it could be one in the morning, one midday, and one in the evening, because these actually, like doing longer walks is great as well, of course, but actually like 3 10-minute walks spread out throughout the day have a better benefit than one 30-minute walk, because it's a little bit almost like how a car, if it starts and stops, it burns more fuel than if it's driving fast but at a constant speed. This is of course not just about burning, but it's just that sprinkling it out just seems to have a better effect even. So if you can't get, on days you can't get a lot of steps in, you can always think of like 3 times when you get a little bit of steps in. Other general activity, of course, like even taking the chance if you walk by outdoor gym or something, it's a good opportunity to just move, hang a bit, stretch a bit, or do little push-ups and pull-ups, but not to fade. You were not training hard, But this is also just stimulating recovery and stuff like this. Sun exposure, extremely important. So the morning sun, great for setting the circadian rhythm. The red light from the sun is going to tell your body what, it's morning, so it knows, and it's actually going to help you sleep better at night. The midday sun is just so important for hormone synthesization. I think I said that right. People talk about TRT and supplements, and they don't realize if you're not getting enough sun and not sleeping well, shut the fuck up about your supplements. And that the sun is anabolic as fuck. So important, both for our training goals, but for general health, hormones, and come on. Okay, yeah, for the difficult and searchers. So this to speak to the just pushing ourselves and becoming a strong and best version of ourselves, using the gym as a kind of stepping stone for that. We can do things that we do really just to push ourselves. So every once in a while we want to throw in something extreme. Could be max reps with a moderate weight on a compound. So going not as heavy, but just maxing out as much as you can. Or just an extreme workout where you just decide, I'm gonna completely destroy my legs or my arms or whatever. It's both to challenge ourselves, grow metaphorically, just take ourselves through something really tough, so that we get tougher from that. But ultra intensity every once in a while might benefit gains. I've had this happen when I've stalled a bit, then I just get it into my head. I just crush my legs, for instance, and then maybe I don't train them for a week. Then when I come back, this was sort of what pushed me over the limit. Doing this all the time definitely wouldn't be good. You can't train too much. Most people have a problem with undertraining rather than overtraining, but you can overtrain. But overtraining strategically, just throwing something in like that every once in a while, can actually help. So Zerchers are not really mentioned as staple exercises here, because I love Zerchers and they're great. Zercher squats and they're amazing. But I wouldn't say that they're staples, like necessary that you have to do them. It's just they have their place, and for certain individuals and certain programming, and that they are great. But so they can be programmed. Great alternatives. Zercher squats and Zercher Jefferson curls would be. I've done both of these quite a bit myself. And so Zerchers is really just an example. But the Zerchers, they work more core indirectly to the center of gravity when you're like squatting or whatever. When you hold the so for you that don't know, by the way, the Zercher position is having it in the crooks of your elbows, the bar. But yeah, it's gonna work the core more. But it's also a good example of doing something difficult because it's difficult. A lot of people, when they see Zerchers for the first time, it's like, why do you do that? And there are all these reasons, like, oh, it's more athletic. It might be good for someone who's a wrestler. You work more core. They can actually be good to program depending on what the rest of your program looks like. But it's also just kind of fun and difficult. like, yeah, it hurts when you start, but that's kind of the fun part of it. And so this is, again, Zerchers and difficult shit can actually feed into our progress and that, but we do them for other reasons too, to just push ourselves and get tougher like that. So diet, okay? I talked about this in the Uncommon Sense Fitness and Philosophy as well. It's vertical diet based. So you can go look up that the founder Stan Efferding has lots of great free information. But so basically, it's just my starting point. I don't necessarily follow the vertical diet to a T, but I like to have it as a starting point when I, structure my own diet and give other people input on their diets. But so white rice and red meat is the foundation. So white rice are really just easily digestible carbs. That's almost all there is. It's gut friendly for most people. There are a few that actually don't tolerate rice quite as well. But it's really just fuel for performance, and then red meat for fuel as well. But the saturated fats for hormone synthesization, the animal protein, like just great full protein like that. And red meat is packed with micronutrients, B vitamins, zinc, magnesium, heme iron, creatine even. So this is just where we get the majority of our calories. Should say white rice is not for everyone. When you're cutting, you might want to switch to something more satiating, and that is more nutritious also, like potatoes. Potatoes are overall a great option for a carb as well. It's just that when we're bulking, white rice is our friend because it's not very satiating. It's gut friendly. We can eat a lot of it. But we want to, around our foundation of the carbs from rice or potatoes and red meats, we want to have some fruits, berries, vegetables, honey and dairy, orange juice, or honorable mention, not for fatties, not for food and sugar addicts, but it is a good way for the highly active individual that trains hard and eats a lot. It's good. And butter, tallow, olive oil, good fats to use in your cooking. Organ meats like liver can be a very nice micronutrient bomb. But so you see that even we do get a lot of micronutrients from the red meat, but we have these fruits, berries, vegetables, and the other stuff a lot to address micronutrient needs as well. So that's kind of what the vertical diet. It's like the top of the white rice and meat mainly for calories, but some micronutrients, and then we have the little stuff to address all the micronutrient needs. Generally, we like to go with high carb, high protein, and moderate fat. High carb is just more anabolic, actually, like triggering growth processes in the body. Even though the carbs don't make up the muscle mass, eating carbs triggers anabolic processes. Insulin is an anabolic hormone that we like when we don't have problems with it, High protein, just to support muscle growth, but also when we're cutting, Even more important, actually, keep the protein high, preserve our muscle mass, or even be able to build some muscle in a deficit, depending on who we are. A moderate fat. We don't want to go low on fat. We need our fats. It's just that we don't want to push it high always necessarily. But fat can be increased if we have trouble with gaining weight. I have such high metabolism now. I have to just use extra fat to get my calories in and actually gain weight. The carbs can be decreased if weight loss or reducing food addictions is focus. Like the carbs are great. I'm a fan of carbs. They've gotten a bad rap from all the keto and carnivore people. And yeah, hyper processed carbs, and this is crap, of course, but really good carbs, they are necessary for some hormones, but mainly for performance. So even on a cut, I like to have carbs in, but if someone that struggles with food or sugar addiction, or really just the weight loss is the focus and they don't really mind if the performance takes a little hit for a while, then absolutely we could reduce the carbs a bit as well. So you want to have as clean of a diet as possible for health and nutrient partitioning. So for health, it's kind of obvious, of course, the less junk we eat, the more just pure food and nutrients we put into our body, the better for our health. And nutrient partitioning, meaning is that the higher quality of the foods we put in our body, the more the body is going to be able to use it productively, like for energy and putting on muscle mass and repairing tissue, and not just storing it as fat, right? That's what we mean with nutrient partitioning. So we want a foundation of clean foods, but if we are having a hard time pushing ourselves, I put here push you over the edge into a deficit, but I mean into a surplus. If we're bulking, we're trying to eat clean only, but we're not really managing to get enough food in that way. We still want to eat as healthy as possible, but if throwing in some stuff on top that is like not considered a typical health food helps you push you over the limit, that's fine. Because we're still, it's such a big difference on just eating junk food and eating something that's a little bit junky on top of the good food, because you're getting good nutrients from the clean food. And also, if you're just someone that is healthier and burns more, you're going to be able to handle less than optimal food better. But clean food and junk food, it's not black and white. Just do good options. So me, for instance, now when I'm bulking, I'm not having the easiest time. I have such high metabolism. So apart from adding more fat to my cooking, I've eaten these pizzas, but I choose a good kind with a sourdough bottom and with good toppings. It's not really all that unhealthy. Then it's like it can be questioned with the gluten in the bread, but I'm still picking the best choice there rather than just a shitty pan pizza. Or rather than buying some hyper processed candy. I've actually baked these cookies. I use like rice flour. I use honey instead of just pure cane sugar. I use olive oil instead of the crappy seed oil they recommended, and so on. You see, on top of my foundation of clean food, doing this slightly less clean, but still not the hyper processed bullshit, it's still good and it helps push you into the surplus like that. So yeah, fasting, honorable mention really. Talk a whole bunch of videos on the channel about this, but is the fastest way to lose weight, of course. 100% calorie surplus, obviously. You don't lose muscle if you eat protein and train when not fasting. That's a myth. Don't stop being afraid of that. Just not a thing unless you get like super giga shredded like a competition bodybuilder. And let's face it, most likely you're not, and I wouldn't recommend that anyway. But the thing is also that we can not only cut fast with it, we also gain tons of benefits, spiritual, mental, and physical. Growth hormone boost, autophagy, the renewal of old damaged cells. We just disconnect from being so stimulated by eating and all this shit, and actually just get more room to look at ourselves and be with ourselves. I don't have to go on. There's just you can look them up yourself or watch the other fasting videos on this channel. That's the amazing thing with fasting, that not you can lose weight with it and gain so much more at the same time. But so this is a theory. I have a video about this as well. It might help muscle growth long term. So obviously you're not growing muscle when you're not eating at all. I think everyone understands that. I hope so. But long term, the body can get more or less used to different stimulus you give it. So even like the training stimulus and the stimulus from protein, you I just noticed from experience that when I've done fasting and I stop and I get back to eating more and training more, I kind of blow up, especially after 1 week fast that I did. After I finished it and got back to training and that, like I thought, like, am I seeing something? Am I just imagining this? My contact's messing up a little bit. But then a lot of other people were like, dude, you kind of blew up after your fast. So it might be something like the growth hormone from the fast, of course, but also something that the actual sensitivity to protein, that it triggers more protein synthesis when you've fasted and then eat protein, and you're more sensitive to IGF-1 and these growth factors in the body. But this is a theory. It's mainly the weight loss and the other benefits we can gain that we like apart from the gym training, but it might actually, when you implement it in the right way, long term help you with muscle growth. So final words. Uncommon Sense Bodybuilding is a training style to develop a body that looks good because it is good. Strong, flexible, and healthy. I think we cover that. But it's part of holistic building, holistic bodybuilding, you know, but it's just a central tool. Like we work on ourselves, we want to develop ourselves in any way, getting to the root, our traumas, our core wounds, our other issues in life, addictions, relationships, whatever it is. But always having this process in the gym is it's something that always keeps us moving. We always have something to work on, but also we can, a lot of how we learn about how self-development works in the gym, we can bring to the other areas in our life. So at the core, this is a style I've used for my 5 years of training, just refining and improving on it. So this means I started for other reasons than, oh, I just want to look good, you know. I had overcome these panic attacks and worked on myself this entire way. But then I found the training, I both become this nerd. I am a bro that just likes the bodybuilding, but I saw how it just was, you know, central tool for all this other stuff. But when it comes to the training, I had this kind of going to failure approach style from early. It was kind of similar how I programmed, just as things like my execution, the form I used, and there's just been a ton of refining and improving on it since then. But you become, through this, a jacked and tan solar night. And yeah, this last slide, I know I added before I put the little section about sun in recovery, but yeah, the sun is anabolic as fuck and the tan is aesthetic. You know, what looks good is good when it's natural, like a tan. And a beautifully sculpted body built using uncommon sense bodybuilding as a part of holistic bodybuilding. But yeah, guys, that's the end of the presentation. I hope you enjoyed it. Would very much like to hear what you think, questions you may have that I can do, well, both answer, but do follow-up videos with. Everything is welcome. All likes and comments help support the channel anyway, so please support just that. We'll ask again, if you like my work and want to support it, you become a member of the channel, become a Patreon, or just sending some support on PayPal. All of that is in the description below. Whatever works for you, like and comment is always great support as well. And if this was somehow your first video, you know, subscribe for more content about fitness, fasting, losing weight, building muscle, self-improvement, stoicism, mental health, philosophy, mindset. It is a mindset, guys. Let's get jacked and stacked.